Hi everyone, welcome back. Very bright, isn't it? Okay, so we're on to our third session of today, titled The Female Voice. And our panel are going to be sharing their experiences on how they found their voice and how we can support other females in finding theirs, climbing up the ladder and throughout their careers. So I'd like to introduce my panel. We've got Karen Geddes, QPM, former WM Police Superintendent, Alice Kinder, President of Birmingham Law Society, and Lily Satterthwaite, Regional Lead of Microsoft. So if you start if you just start the mics to introduce yourself. It is on. There we go.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me on the panel. So for those of you that I haven't met, my name is Alice. I am the President of the Birmingham Law Society. So we are the membership organisation that represent about 9,000 legal professionals in Birmingham and the surrounding area. And somehow I am the youngest person to do this role, to be president, in 205 years. So a very special International Women's Day for me today. And when I'm not president of the Birmingham Law Society, I am an employment lawyer. I'm a senior associate at a firm called Bexley Beaumont.
Thank you.
Oh, it's afternoon now, isn't it? Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to put it out there. I hate that picture.
I hate mine.
Okay, so my name obviously is Karen Geddes, and I did 30 years with West Midlands Police, working in and around Birmingham City Centre the majority of my time. Not the oldest person within West Midlands Police, but I was the first black female to be promoted to the rank of superintendent.
Woo!
Yeah. And I've done my 30 years, done the crime, did the time, I'm out now. And I don't use the word retire, I use the word transitioned. I transitioned in 2022 and formed the Thin Black Line. And I'll talk a little bit about why I use that terminology throughout our conversation.
Yep.
And that's me.
Hello there. Now I feel like the imposter syndrome is kicking in. I'm Lily Satterthwaite. I'm from Microsoft, and I think I'm the oldest now. I am in my 50s now. Yeah. Oh, you are? Oh, she's taking that away from me too. So I'm of mixed heritage, and I have been with Microsoft for over 9 years. I'm based in the UK, but I report into the US, and my job title is Principal Program Manager, but nobody knows what that means. Regional leads make a bit of sense. So I cover the UK and CIMA, which means that I cover 112 countries, and we make sure we have enough Azure capacity on our cloud platform for our customers to deploy their applications onto the Azure platform at Microsoft.
Thank you. Yep. Okay, so first question, I just want to ask, in finding your voice throughout your career, because you have to speak up for yourselves, I think self-promotion was one of the key things we touched on in the last session. Would you say that there are any pivotal moments that you would like to share or challenges that you found that helped you find your voice throughout your career?
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, anybody that knows me probably knows I talk a lot. I was very quiet when I was a child, when I was growing up. I was very shy. I was one of those people that would hide at lunchtime, didn't really talk to anybody. I grew up in a working class background. Nobody in my family had been to university, and navigating what on earth I was going to do when I left school and became an adult and had to make decisions was a minefield. And I actually started off, before I became a lawyer, doing a history degree at Oxford. And for me, that was a very difficult experience. It was a world I had never come across before. And I found myself really being exposed to the reality of class division, of how somebody's background can impact the experiences that you have, what you go on to do in life. And whilst it shouldn't, I learned that it did. And that really did knock my confidence. Now, the pivotal moment for me, I think, in finding my voice was after I dropped out of Oxford and I got a job in a shop, just serving the customers, looking after the clothes, making sure the store looked nice, meeting sales targets. And it might seem like quite a small thing. But for me, that was an environment where I really felt comfortable. I got used to talking to the customers, I got used to selling, to having to cross-sell different products. And I was constantly busy. I managed a diverse range of different customers, and eventually I got promoted to a team coach, which meant that I was in charge of training the new staff and making decisions about refunds and those types of things. And I learned really there to assert myself quite effectively, and that honed my communication skills. So that, I think, was the pivotal moment for me. That's when I really first found my confidence. And in my legal career, I think my voice has come from finding those subjects that I'm passionate about. You probably can gather from my own experiences. I'm passionate about social mobility, about equal opportunities. And I've certainly found that my voice has come where I've had the opportunity to advocate for things that I feel interested in and passionate about. It's far easier, I think, to make those connections, to have a voice, to be powerful when you are passionate about what you're talking about. So that's my experience.
Yeah.
So for me, and I go back to the title, talk about the thin black line. When I joined policing in 1992, and I joined because of an advert that talked about recruiting people that look like me. So when I went to the training college, I expected to see people that look like me. And in fact, I was one of only 2 black females at that time within policing. Mm-hmm. And the thin black line refers to the fact that that's always been my experience and my journey. I've never had a manager that looked like me. I've had colleagues, and we talk about when we run around the corridor and we see each other, another black woman, we would hug each other, literally and figuratively, because we're always a minority in an organisation. So that bit about confidence and the ability to speak up came quite late to me, and the pivotal point to me was one day I found myself in a cupboard, literally, at a police station, and I was crying. And I was crying because something to do with I was trying to have children, nobody understood, fertility treatment, couldn't talk to anybody, and it wasn't something that I felt comfortable talking about. And I thought I could either leave policing or I could fight. And my mom brought up a fighter. So I chose then, that's when I sought out networking, and for me, it was a Black and Asian Police Association, which I later became the chair of. And from then on, I have a phrase that I put on my website called, "If not you, then who?" Because I'm a strong believer in change sits within the room and sits within individuals, and we can't always wait on advocates to make changes for us. So we've got to fight on our behalf. I've got a daughter. I've got to be that advocate for her and encourage her to be the change that she wants to see.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. So mine is really slightly different, going back to 1973, the Vietnam War. So my parents then moved to France, and because we are a mixed race family, it was really difficult for me growing up. So I knew from the young age that I look different, I speak differently. Although my name is British because I'm married to a British guy, but it was that moment where I couldn't speak very good English. I went to UK to study English, and yet at school we just say hello and the normal study of English. So when I came over here, surrounded by British colleagues at work, it was like an eye-opener. If I didn't belong there, and I think one of your guests talked about representation.
Yeah.
At the time, I look around and there was nobody like me. I feel like I'm quite Westerner because of my background, but I'm also Asian. But there was really nobody looking like me, and English wasn't great either. So I went home, and my mum said, "But do they realise, or do you know your superpowers? You speak 5 languages."
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, but they don't even understand me. Why? What's the point of it, right? And she said, just keep doing the hard work.
Yeah.
You might look different, so create something that is telling and build your community.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to fit in. Do not fit in. You want to stand out.
Yeah.
And since then, thanks to my mum, she passed now, but since then I've been advocating for women at Microsoft, inside Microsoft, but also outside Microsoft. I do a lot of tech talks for non-technical audience. The other key moment for me, and when I feel really empowering, is I was in a meeting and there was, leaders as well as early in careers, interns, and one of the male leader ping me and say, "You are awfully quiet today. What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Did you know that your voice matter, what you say matter, but what you don't say matters even more?" That's where I feel like a sense of empowerment. A male leader who ping me on Teams and say that, I'm like, right, I'm going to have to do something. And ever since, like I said, it really empowered me, and I feel like I'm going to lead by example, and I'm going to bring, the early careers, the interns with me, and make sure they have a voice, and how we can create that collective amplification.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing. So on that then, what would you say are some specific strategies or techniques that any of you have used that have been effective throughout your career in developing and inserting your voice as a female in the professional world, particularly in environments where gender dynamics have obstacles? We know that like a man speaks and he's passionate, and a woman speaks and he could be seen as aggressive or over the top. So like, what are some techniques that you have found throughout your careers that have helped find your voice in that setting?
Good question. I think over the years, there's a few lessons, I suppose, that I've learned, and they've helped me really, I think, to build up my voice. The first one is realising that nothing in this world, in the legal profession or in any career, is going to come to you on a plate. Mm-hmm. And to get the rewards, to get to where you want to be, you do have to put yourself out there. You have to make yourself visible. You have to take the opportunities that come. And having that realisation that the more you are visible, the more you do go and talk to people and articulate what you want to achieve, the more people can help you, and the more people will listen to you. And over the course of time, I've learned that it's important really to have confidence in what you want to achieve. Now, we have a fantastic theme for this year's IWD, which is Inspire Inclusion. And the core of that is that everybody's experience is different. I am a 31-year-old female from a working class background. Yes, I'm a woman, but my experiences as a woman are very different to other experiences. And it's about recognising everybody's journey is different. Mm-hmm. And what you might want to achieve, what's important to you, is important to you because you are unique. And having that confidence in what you want to achieve and where you want to go, I think is really important in then helping you to advocate for it. Yeah. And we've talked a lot about networking as well, and putting yourself, I suppose, in those situations where you can meet people that will help you, finding those mentors, finding those individuals that will champion you. But yeah, a few things from me.
Yeah, thank you. Karen.
So I'm not going to lie, when I read the word assertion, that sort of triggered some memories for me. Because when I used to assert myself in the workforce, it was an angry black woman. When I used to speak out and challenge, it was a race card moment a lot of the time. So I had to empower myself using my own network, and some of that came from external sources, to say that you are good enough, you are correct. And I think some people spoke about that self-realization, about realizing you're good enough. And for me, the strategies that I use was going home and checking with my family or trusted sources, and that was my trusted network. And there were people within the organization that I would go to, or would be that person that would say, Karen, you are silent. Mm-hmm. And you would know who those ones, but it took a long while to be able to trust that they had your back. So part of that is opening yourself to being seen and being vulnerable and taking on board advice that are people giving you from a trusted place as well. But it's hard. When you've been knocked down a few times, it is hard to then look in the mirror and say, I trust that person. And we talk a lot about men on the panel and how men are helping. I think sometimes we've got to recognise it's women who are doing that to women as well. Yeah. And I would say, when you look at the audience today around, there's mainly women in here, change sits within your space. When you go back and it's not International Women's Day tomorrow, Monday, etc., what are you going to do different? And what are you going to challenge your managers to be doing different to create that space where you or somebody else who hasn't had the opportunity to come today can assert themselves in a safe way, that they're not labelled as that's not a word, but just a female who's got emotional problems or an angry black female. So what are you going to do different tomorrow? What are you going to advocate for people that are not here, particularly male, to be doing differently?
Yeah.
Well said.
Lots of claps today. Lily?
Yeah, so I have it all. So because I'm 25% French and German, I was told that I was too abrupt, too rude. I'm kind of 10% Vietnamese and 25% Chinese. That's the label that I had throughout my professional life. So she's very humble. She should get on with her work. You know, we're not going to even look at her. So I found the power in being visible.
Yeah.
And like you said, being bold. So at Microsoft, I think I've got some of my colleagues here. Thank you. So I've been with Microsoft for over 9 years, and I have had 7 jobs. And that is, for me, is a compliment, because every time I finish or complete a large program of work, somebody else knock at my door and say, "You've done brilliantly. Would you want to come and work for us?" So every year I've got a knock on my door and say, "Come and work for us."
Thank you. In all of your opinions, what would you say the role of culture within organisations, and specifically like leadership of those organisations, play in creating an environment where women do feel like they can speak up without repercussions, or they speak up and they're not going to be affected by it? What would you say?
So obviously, it goes without saying, from a policing point of view, there's a lot in the media around culture, particularly around misogynistic behaviour. For me, just splitting it up, I think sometimes we look at leadership to drive that change, but leaders set that strategy, and delivery comes from the people that sit within the room. The culture is about the values that are brought within the organisation. And in order for that culture to permeate and become business as usual and be the DNA of that organisation, it takes individuals who are regularly in the room to drive that change and to exemplify what it is they want to see. So whilst it is down to leaders to set the example and the tone, well, a lot of conversation we're hearing is coming downwards. But the power, I think, again, comes upwards. And power sits within this room. I cannot explain that enough or express that enough. You have the ability to change the environment that you're in, but you've just got to believe. And I hate this word, imposter syndrome, because when you look at the data and the actual academic research around it, the number of people that they actually looked at were quite nuanced. It didn't look at neurodiversity. It didn't look at people like you and I. So you are not an imposter. You don't have a syndrome. You're not sick. Yeah. So I think that needs to move on. And this bit about unconscious bias as well, that's only an excuse for a certain amount of time. Women have been around from day dot Eve. We're not a surprise. We're not a surprise entity. So, yeah. All men come from a woman. So what are they unconscious about?
Shall we ask the male of the audience? Brilliant.
Yeah, I think culture, certainly in the legal profession, plays a huge role. Now, the legal profession probably is one of the most historic, traditional institutions in the world. But what we've seen is that whilst the legal profession has been constant, we've had lawyers for hundreds, thousands of years in some capacity, we've also evolved with the times. That we are now over 100 years since the first female solicitor and barrister have qualified in England and Wales. And what we've recognised, I think, in that time is that in order to stay the same, if we want the legal profession to be representative of the people that it serves, we need to change. If we want to stay the same, we have to embrace change. And in my view, that change, in terms of wider culture, has to start at the top. We are all here because we are passionate about inclusion and passionate about championing the female voice. But we need that senior buy-in in organisations. We need businesses to make that investment, to recognise that providing support to your female colleagues is important and it is worth the time and the investment, and making sure that appropriate resources is allocated to that will drive that change. Because unless you have the cultural buy-in at the top, it's going to be very difficult for it to filter down. So we have to embrace change within the legal profession, within any profession. If we want to continue as we are, we have to recognise that we need to be inclusive of the people that we serve.
Go.
Totally agree. And I think the tech industry is quite similar. But I think at Microsoft, we have a CEO who is very compassionate, and he understands empathy, having gone through personal challenges in his life as well. So the culture at Microsoft is, coach care and lead by example. So, and I think I agree with you, Karen, it depends. It's not just top down, but it's up to me to make the culture inclusive and diverse enough for my team and the people I work with and for the next generation.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like just based on points that you said, I want to touch a bit like on identity, given that this is female voice, things like names and culture and understanding of when you're in organizations and you have people from all over the place, especially big organizations that are global, how important is that identity and understanding that people really do come from different backgrounds? I know you mentioned you're married now, so you have a British surname, but pre that and
I can't even pronounce it.
but things like that, in that, like, that is part of who you are and that is part of your voice. So how is that important to you, and how can we like explain that importance to others so that they can understand it? Tough question, but
yeah, and again, I think we're giving too much power to individuals. I think one of the things when I was staff chair, when I developed a strategy for the staff network, was about celebrating myself, celebrating my culture. And they could tell me the first horse that came into Westmeads, please, but they couldn't tell me the first black female.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think, again, celebrate yourself, identify what it is that you are achievers at, and we are achievers, and don't give too much power and rely on validation from other individuals who are not necessarily wanting to listen to you. But equally, when they talk about, I have this program that I talk about when I talk about HEAL, and for me, HEAL is about history. If they're interested in me, they will go and learn my history. It's empowerment. If they want to do something, they will go and empower themselves and educate themselves about what they need to do to change their actions. Advocacy, we've already talked about being an allyship. An ally is not about, it's an active word, it's actually doing something. It's like saying, I'm not racist, it's different to saying I'm anti-racist and doing something proactive. And then the legacy is about change and actually doing something. So again, a lot of you would have been supported to come here today. That's great. And in 2025, you'll be supported to come here again, and there'll be a different title for International Women's Day. I doubt most people remember what the title was last year. What's happened between those 12 months? And what is going to be different for you in the workspace that leaves a legacy from today going forward to say something has changed and we've moved forward?
Yeah.
Yeah, at Microsoft, we have employee resource groups. We have 9 of them, and I think I'm part of 5 of them because, like I said, I want to be everywhere, do everything, and I want to practice my English and how to pronounce my husband's name. It was a joke. He's not listening to this, I hope. His family. Hi, darling. Where was I? Yes, so, but I have to say, I think in the corporate environment at Microsoft, we know that we deserve to have a seat in the room, wherever that is, okay? What I'm doing now with my female colleagues is we're working to educate our allies, male allies, any allies actually, and that's why I've just been nominated to be part of the Asian committee lead, and I'm so part of the global Asian at Microsoft ERG. We've got 16,000 members globally, and I'm also leading the technical women at Microsoft. We've got 36,000 members globally, and we are making a difference every day. We're changing policies. We are open to talk about taboo subjects such as menopause, and we are making changes. And it doesn't have to be just Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
No, agreed. Yeah, I think in terms of identity, it is, as we've said, it's recognising what you can bring to the room, that everybody in this room is unique. You all have something which makes you who you are. And there will be barriers. I've often said to people I've mentored that you will go into the workplace, you'll meet people that like you, people that don't like you. You'll meet people that you resonate with, people that you don't. But the most important thing to keep in mind is what you bring to the room. And there will be barriers. You may be told that you can't do something, but understand why. I mean, there's been many people that have said to me, you're too young, you can't be president of the Law Society, you're only 31, you're not a partner in a law firm. But recognise actually what you can bring, because that might be something very different, very unique and very special. Because what I would say, if you've got a dream of doing something that matters to you, take the opportunities, have the confidence and go for it, because I promise that dream, it will only become more unrealistic, more impossible if you don't have that belief in yourself.
Yeah.
Can I follow up on that? As I told you earlier, very openly, that I'm going through the menopause, and the fear is that they're not going to give me big projects anymore because I might forget what I'm doing. I'll forget my customer's name, which already happened. But my CVP, who is a female and in power, lots of power, said to me, make your team, the V team, work for you. As a leader, you don't have to do everything. That's why you've got the V team. And I thought that was very powerful. She was younger than me. She's younger than me, doesn't go through menopause, but she's got solutions for me, which is lovely, and that's what you need to hear from leaders.
Yeah. And just coming back on a couple of points. One, I've never been told I'm young, I'm too young, and I'm jealous about that. But also, and I've lost my train of thoughts there. There's a phrase that says, you can't be what you can't see.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I'd have believed that, I wouldn't have become the first black superintendent.
Yeah.
So there's also a moment where you can change that to a positive phrase, I can be what I can't see, and become the first. Somebody has to be the first, somebody has to be the pioneer, and create that legacy. That means that change comes after you. Because otherwise, if we sit back and say, I can't be, I would never have been. And I had to become my own role model, and I became a visible role model, not through my own choice, but I'm happy that I did that because I know that I've made it possible for other people to achieve that journey.
Wow. Amazing. We've got a couple of minutes left. I just wanted to, for final thoughts, maybe touch on key advice that you would say for women that are potentially struggling to find their voice, or key advice that you would say that has helped you find yours. Just like key things that we've touched on to wrap up the session for today. Anyone? Yeah.
I think a few things, I suppose, that we have touched on. The first thing I would say is recognise your strengths, recognise what makes you you, what you can bring to the room and what you are passionate about. And exactly what we've just said, that in order for change to happen, in order for the environments to be more inclusive, somebody's got to go first. Somebody has got to take that first step. And just because something hasn't been done before, or you've never seen a 31-year-old person sitting in this chair as president of the Birmingham Law Society, doesn't mean it can't happen. It can. And somebody's got to go first. For change to happen, somebody has got to take the first step, and don't be afraid to do that. Remember that thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would totally agree. And we've already talked about network. I had a similar experience, a lady that came on the first panel around. I had to learn what mentoring was and how to build trust to be able to access mentoring. That goes without saying. I think you have to have the external network, family, friends is so very important. And there's a song by Lizzo that says, in case nobody tells you today, you're special. So I just want to take this opportunity to say, you are special. And look in the mirror when you go out into the toilet and you queue in and eventually get into a cubicle. Tell yourself that you're special, because you are.
You are, yes. I do feel special being here, so thank you for the opportunity. For me is, since we work in a tech company, let's use the tech to challenge some of the business problems that we have right now. So women being interrupted in calls, for example, right? So if you are in the tech industry, you can maybe create an AI who would, go through the transcript and start to anticipate when you're going to get interrupted and then give nudges during the meeting, right? So that's the kind of thing. And my different strategies as well is, and that happens a lot to me in meetings when I know that, somebody was about to kind of critique what I'm saying, but I know I've got the point. Actually, most of the time I'm right. So I listen to them and I say, thank you for your feedback, but I politely and assertively reinserting my point and say, if you still, don't see what I'm trying to say, let's take it offline.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. So be bold. And clearly, in the corporate world, if you want to be a leader, if you want to get promoted, make yourself known, amplify your work. I'm all over LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm going to be posting lots of pictures of you smiling at me today and bragging that, I've done excellently at this panel.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you very much, all of you. You can go. Give a round of applause to our panel. Thank you.